My name is Aaron Ladd, host of the Chiefs Squad Show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And after a slow start, Kansas City has won 4 of their last 5 contests.
What's up, Chiefs Kingdom? It's your guy, JC Pearson, and we're going to thoroughly break down how the Chiefs destroyed the Raiders last week.
And I'm Darren Smith, and I'm going to tell you if Rashee Rice's debut means there's more pressure on the team's offense or defense now going further.
Chiefs Kingdom, stand up. It's the Chiefs Squad. Everything Kansas City Chiefs every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from Arrowhead Stadium, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Squad up. The Chiefs Squad Show starts now.
All right, we got a Chiefs Squad Show post-game show on a Monday. I'll tap my chest on this one and say, my bad. Aaron Ladd, not in his usual setup. I'm in Toronto, north of the border. Just completed my first full marathon. I appreciate y'all being flexible, but we're going to break down another dominant win for the Kansas City Chiefs on this day. Remember, today's episode is sponsored by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's give you a little roadmap of our show, and then we'll get to you, JC. I can tell you're rearing ready to go. We'll give the fans a rundown of what they can expect. Rashee Rice returns, and he scores twice. Everybody ate in this debut for Rashee Rice. We'll talk about the offense and the defense and what they did well against the lackluster Las Vegas Raiders, who honestly just might stink. We'll just break down how bad the Raiders really are, and we have
how you really feel there.
Stats behind that. And then finally, we'll preview an early preview of the playoffs as Kansas City embarks on a very important 4-game stretch here in the meat of their season. We appreciate you everydayers for tapping in with us, and we appreciate you making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. So let's just jump right into it. Rashee Rice, who we previewed returning to Kansas City in this offense, scores twice. JC, what do you make of number 4's impact on this offense?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Rashee Rice, man. But hey, we need to know how you did in your debut, your marathon day. How did your Sunday go? We'll get to everything else.
I'm gonna be honest, man. Mile 18 was a very humbling experience. I never had as bad a cramps as I experienced at that point in time. But I gutted through 9 more miles. Both my parents showed up, which really helped make me push through. And it was a really cool accomplishment. It's Metal Monday, so I'm going to be rocking this for a little bit. But thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I appreciate y'all being flexible on the day.
Congrats, man. 26 miles, bro. It'd take me about, a week to run 26 miles.
I'm catching a cab to get to the finish line. So
yeah.
Better than me.
But now, man, back to the game, man. Sure. And Rashee, man. Big time, and Darren talked last week about the impact he was going to make and how they were going to feature him. I didn't think that they were going to feature him as much as they did, but came out and made an impact. They made it a point to get him that touchdown early, like Darren said they were going to do. So props to Darren. But, man, he came in and, man, not only him, but now they have so many weapons, and they seem like – they've adjusted their game plan. They're throwing the ball a lot quicker and not just looking for the home run every time. So the way that they're playing offense now, man, with the weapons they have and Pat getting rid of the ball, man, they are rolling and in rhythm.
All right, Darren Smith, go ahead, take your victory lap. We heard you last week talking about anytime touchdown, Rashee Rice, and we got the text in the group chat right away. We'll go ahead.
Yeah.
You know what? Me and Floyd Mayweather said the same thing. What's understood don't need to be said. So, but that look, I'm gonna be honest. The thing that impressed me most with his return was how balanced the offense actually looked. This time around, Mahomes wasn't the leading rusher. They ran for 152 yards on the ground. I mean, and when you look at the overall, the overall stature of what this team did, this was one of the few games that you can say they actually played essentially a perfect game, offense, defense, and including special teams. And look, we talk about it. We've been talking about it offline, of course, last week about Harrison Butker and his issues. He went perfect yesterday, so I definitely want to make sure that while we're talking about Rashee and everybody else, that we extend, congrats to him, because, it has been a mental ordeal for him over these last 6 games, and for him to go perfect as well, but I do believe that with what we saw it's really on the tip of the iceberg. Normally we don't I don't go on a personal private conversations, but I did ask Patrick in the locker room yesterday before he went to the podium. I said, look, you all have averaged 31 points or whatever. Now that you finally got everybody back healthy, is this the floor of what this offense should be, 30 plus points a game? And he said that I don't want to give a number, but I do expect to score on every drive. So, you think about the number of drives that you have, of course, you should be able to get more than 30 points. And that's coming from Patrick to me yesterday in the locker room.
Darren Smith giving us some insight on the ground there. Patrick Mahomes, 26 of 35 for 286 yards and 3 scores, but specific to Rashee Rice, 10 targets in this debut. It was very clear, came down with 7 of them, 2 scores, 42 yards. Not only were they spreading the ball around, but from the very beginning, they were trying to get him involved in the offense. I know he had a little double clutch on that first drive there. You could see some of the nerves, but you could really see the excitement from him as well. The punt into the crowd when he scores the first one. And then the second one, I thought it was really cool. He's looking around in the end zone for a kid and gets the ball to a kid. It's very clear to me that Rashee Rice missed playing football, missed being a part of this offense, and really cherished the opportunity to go out there and put his best foot forward. And you spoke to it. I don't remember if it was JC or Darren, but he really unlocks the ability for them to be versatile, not only in the pass game, but the run game, and really throw the defense and give them a little bit else to think about. I'm just curious now when they face tougher competition. Of course, we'll preview that later in the show. The Raiders, I don't want to say it's like wet tissue paper, but I mean,
pretty close.
Exactly. It wasn't exactly the varsity team out there.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But Rashee, man, and I think it goes back to Andy too, man. That they welcome him back like that, and then they feature him at that. They start him, they feature him. And you can see the excitement, the energy, and all that. And that's from the top down, man. You hadn't really seen that energy in a while, where everybody is just happy for everybody. They were like that a few years ago, and then it kind of got away from that a little bit. But yesterday it seemed like everybody was happy for everybody doing anything. Hollywood gets a touchdown. Everybody ate 9 different receivers. Defense dominated, like Darren was saying, that Butker made all his kicks. But yeah, yesterday it was kind of what people expect the Chiefs to be.
Is the run game back, Darren Smith?
The run game is back because one of the things that allowed with Rashee being there, it opened up the offense for everybody. And one of the things that I talked about last week, I know we kind of joked about it, was the reason why I felt that they would feature Rashee is because it's the same thing that they did with Xavier. If you remember in the first game, he got hurt on the third play, and everybody said, all the players on the team said that was going to be a heavy package of Xavier Woods in the game. But when he came back against the Baltimore Ravens, we saw, I guess essentially what would have been done in that game, where he had, I think, like 12 targets or touches or whatever in that game. And so I felt that even though they made it seem like they were going to bring him along, and Andy said in his presser today that they're still going to add more to his plate, I'm like, he played in the preseason, so it's not like he didn't, it's not like he had to garner anything new within the playbook. And essentially he was already in game time shape. He just had to sit out 6 weeks, but he was already in game shape because he played in the preseason. But to your point about the running game, I just think he opens it up because you finally got a chance to see everybody. I mean, we're what 7 weeks into the NFL season, and now everybody on offense is healthy. I mean, not nicked up. I'm talking about healthy, to where you're coming out the game against the Raiders, and you don't have anybody on the offensive side of the ball. Well, let me take it back, because I know Trey Smith suffered a back injury yesterday, so let me pull back on that. But your skill position players, everybody's healthy, and so you just get an idea of how explosive this offense can be. And my X factor going into yesterday's game, I said was going to be Matt Nagy, of course. And I say Matt Nagy, I know everybody says Andy Reid calls the plays, but if Matt Nagy name is floating around as a potential head coach for the Tennessee Titans or anything else. Well, I need to know, especially if you're going to be dealing with Cam Ward, I need to know what type of creativity you can come out here with when you got all of your weapons and stuff. And I think, he and Andy Reid did a great job yesterday in showing it.
57 yards for Isaiah Pacheco, 15 attempts. I wanted 2 rushing touchdowns. We talked about that on the end of last week's episode for our everydayers that tap in. It still looked like it was efficient as far as the running game is concerned. They converted a lot of those third downs when it was third and manageable. Mahomes kind of made the highlights with kind of the acting skills. And I saw him talking post game about the State Farm work and all that good stuff. Maybe we're not shining enough light on what the offensive line has done as a key cog in what this whole piece of the puzzle is. Mahomes is a quarterback that holds the ball a little bit longer than league average. And he likes to move around in the pocket. And these have been clean pockets. These have been clean looks, especially when you're focusing on pushing the ball down the field and trying to get to a Tyquan Thornton and finding a Travis Kelce deep for that 44-yard game on the first drive. Like, the offensive line has really kept Mahomes clean. And while we were talking in these early episodes about the scrambles and him trying to move around and avoid some of the hits, I think the offensive line has really contributed well to kind of this offensive resurgence that we've seen for Kansas City.
Yeah, I think the offensive line is playing well. Now, let's not jump the gun and anoint all these guys. It was the Raiders they were playing against yesterday. And, man, the Raiders, in my opinion.
But they still had to go up against Max Crosby until he got hurt.
Yeah.
What do we think about that play?
And then
I know that was kind of controversial. Are there any thoughts on that play? Is that something that should have been flagged? Should have been? Is that a dirty play? JC, you played in the league. Is that you don't want to be on the receiving end of a block like that?
Yeah, but hey, things happen, and it's a physical game, and he gives as much as he gets. You know what I mean? So, hey, it is what it is, and some people, I'm sure, his side thinks that probably says it was dirty, and our side's like, hey, it's physical football, so hey, it is what it is.
And look, to your point about the offensive line, again, they didn't give up any sacks yesterday. The sack that Mahomes took was the one that Isaiah Pacheco missed his block on. I mean, other than that, Mahomes was essentially untouched most of the game. He had a couple of tackles where, he's going forward for positive yards, but this is 4 weeks in a row now that we haven't heard Jawan Taylor's name being called on the broadcast or by the officials. So so that's I talked to him yesterday. I don't know. I think him being engaged is kind of it takes his mind somewhere else, so he didn't have to worry about starting early or whatever. So shout out to him and congratulations to him on his pending nuptials. But no, I think again, credit due to Andy Heck and the coaching staff getting everybody on this, especially that offensive line. Patrick even said in the presser yesterday that he has, that the offensive line protection is giving him more confidence for him to take more chances because of the trust that he has in the defense. So, as you see, just that comment alone shows how everything is coming together and all the pieces are working together for each other.
Yeah, I got some more numbers. Let me throw some numbers and then I'll give it to you, JC, on Kansas City's offensive resurgence. Past 4 weeks, they're second in points scored per drive. Removing garbage time, the Chiefs have scored touchdowns on 56% of their possessions since the start of week 4. Over the past month, Mahomes has dealt with quick pressures on just 6% of his dropbacks. So just shows you they're peaking and they're playing their best ball as of late.
Yeah, and I think they've kind of altered the way, whether it's Matt Nagy, Andy, whoever's calling those plays, I think they've adjusted the way that they've called some plays too. They're calling a lot more quick throws. We're seeing quick screens outside, whether it's, Rashee, whether it's Juju, whomever it is. We're seeing slants. We're seeing stuff that we hadn't been seeing in the past. And that helps those guys up front also, because now, those D linemen, they don't know if they've got to run to the outside, to those quick screens, or if they're getting up the field or whatever, and it tires those guys out. But, those guys doing a good job. All in all, they're doing a good job. And, like I said, the play calling, the talent, what Pat is doing, reading the defense wise and getting rid of the ball. So I think right now they're starting to really catch their stride.
It wasn't just a strong showing for Kansas City's offense, but the defense as well puts up a historic performance in the shutout of the Las Vegas Raiders. We will talk more about Steve Spagnuolo's unit on the other side of this break. If you're a business owner, here's the truth. SaaS promised to make work easier, but now the average company is buried by hundreds of apps that slow down your teams and simply don't work together. That's not SaaS, that's SAD, software as a disservice. That's why you need Rippling. Rippling is the unified platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance, all in one place. They've helped millions of businesses replace a mess of disconnected tools with one system designed to give leaders clarity, speed, and control. It's seriously simple to use and gives companies one source for their truth of their people, data, and everything they touch. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions may apply. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Every day we make decisions, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss the excitement of this football season with PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Playing PrizePicks is such a fun, simple way to add excitement to football. You just pick more or less on player projections like Josh Allen's passing yards or Saquon Barkley rushing for a touchdown, and you're in the game. It's also fun to follow other players in the app and copy their lineups with just one click. And the new injury reboot feature, if your player leaves early and doesn't return, it won't count against you. Download the PrizePicks apps today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, we're back here on the Chiefs Squad Show on a Monday. Appreciate y'all bearing with us. It is a Metal Monday. We are celebrating the first marathon for me. I appreciate that one. And not the only hardware for that we're celebrating here as the Kansas City Chiefs hold the Raiders to 0 points, a goose egg, a donut. We're looking through it right now. And as we previewed this game, I told y'all, Smith is playing some of his worst ball, and this Kansas City defense has something to prove. And that played out, JC. What do you make of what Steve Spagnuolo's unit was able to do?
Man, you're right. Geno is horrible. He's terrible, man. But, man, 30 plays.
I thought I was crazy.
95 total yards. Come on, man. I mean, they were bad, man. And this defense did exactly what they're supposed to do when you play against a team that is that bad and struggling because of injury, whatever the case may be, is you don't give them any hope. You put your foot on their neck and you choke them out. And that's exactly what they did. And mind you, I mean, these guys played, 3 quarters, really? I mean, the fourth quarter, they weren't even in the game. So, to hold an NFL team to 0 points and less than 100 yards total offense is total domination. And, I get hats off to this defense for not letting up and not letting down and going out and taking care of business the way they're supposed to.
Darren, what do you think? The Raiders ran just 2 plays in Chiefs territory for the whole game.
For them, I don't think it was by choice. I think just because they just couldn't move the ball. Look, one of the things that impressed me about the team yesterday and Andy Reid and the play calling was that for once they kept a foot on their necks and essentially, as JC mentioned, and talked about, especially with the point spread being what it was, you need to go out and a couple of things. Prove that what happened the week before against Detroit Lions was an aberration, but or a sign of things to come. And when you play a team as bad as the Raiders, you need to put your foot on your necks and leave no doubt. Again, you were up 14-0 over Jacksonville, where that game should have been a blowout, and ended up being a game where you end up losing. They got up 14-0, and they kept the gas going. So that's what I enjoyed most about the game. It wasn't that it was just beating up on the Raiders, but it was the fact that you had that killer instinct, and it was like every time you got the ball, you were looking to put the ball in the end zone, not through the uprights, but in the end zone. And and defensively, I mean, we've used so many superlatives over the years in describing Steve Spagnuolo, man, and the players love him. I talked to all the defensive players yesterday, along with Harrison Buck. I talked to Nick Bolton, Leo Chenal, Drew Tranquil, and of course Trent McDuffie, and they all to a man said that pride-wise, going into the Raider week, Spags wanted to make a special appeal to them in stopping the run first and foremost. Stop the run, as I talked about last week. Make Geno Smith beat you.
Well, that stood out to me. I felt like the Raiders abandoned the run. I mean, Ashton Jeanty didn't even get his second carry until it was 14-0. And to me, it was the tale of two game scripts. Kansas City had a perfect game script. They're spreading the ball around. Everybody gets a touch early. For the Raiders, it seemed like it was quick 3-and-outs. They're missed passes. You're putting Geno in bad positions. To me, if you want to calm things and slow things down, and especially time of possession early, you want to get your young running back going downhill earlier. I just couldn't understand that. I'm
wondering how much of that is coaching to where Pete Carroll. I mean, because when you look at how the game turned out, it makes you wonder, did they even prepare to take on the Chiefs, last week?
Yeah,
seriously,
really.
because what you put out there on the field, you could have just stayed at home for all that.
And Darren's asking, what did they do during the week? What was going on in the meeting rooms?
Yeah,
seriously,
they on the strip down there in Vegas, but man, seriously though, because they didn't complete a pass the entire second and third quarter. Didn't even complete a pass. But then like you said, Ashton Jeanty, goes a long stretch without even touching the ball. Like, so what is your plan? What are you doing? And that was my thought exactly during the game, is like, what is their offensive plan? Because, those guys, as bad as they are as a team right now, whatever the case may be, those guys have NFL players. They got pro players, so it shouldn't be that bad. You can be bad, but not that bad. So the coaches and their scheme is putting those guys in some tough situations too, that, I thought a couple times where Geno got hit and got sacked holding on to the ball. But then when they show the replay, all his receivers are still running downfield. So I'm like, do they not have a blitz adjustment? Are they not looking at the same things? And yeah, it just was kind of crazy because, he had no choice but to hold on to the ball because his guys are still running down the field, not even looking, but yet here's this blitz coming at him. And, it's like they were totally unprepared.
Let me toss this out to you all. If it was anyone else other than Pete Carroll, would yesterday's game be a fireable offense?
It's a little too early in his first year.
No. That's why I said if it was anyone else other than Pete Carroll, would yesterday's game be a fireable offense?
Aaron Glenn put up a couple stinkers this year too. I mean, there's been some routes this year. I don't know what the Raiders are doing, and kind of point to what JC was saying about this game it was a lot about identity. And kind of back to what you were saying about talking to the defensive side, and they said, our identity on defense is we're stopping the run first. If push comes to shove, whatever we're going to do, that's what we're relying on. When I look at the Raiders offense, not just in this game, but games before this, the Colts game or whatever, what is their offensive identity? I mean, even when Ashton Jeanty plays well, there will be games like this one where he doesn't get his second carry into 14-0. They don't really have things that they can rely on when the bullets are flying, when it's a war zone out there. What do we know that we can do well? For Kansas City, I know it's 15, 87, and now 4 back in the mix. There's things that they can do well when they need to look at the play sheet and they need to get the ball rolling offensively. For Vegas, and I know we're going to continue to talk about them in these next 2 segments, what's the offensive identity now and then going forward?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah. I mean, I'm sure their fans are asking the same question, like, man, what in the heck are we paying to watch? I don't know who their GM is, who their player personnel guy is, but
Tom Brady's in the mix now.
Yeah, but I don't know how much. Yeah, he's part owner, but he's doing games every weekend. I don't know how much he's actually in the building.
He was there. I don't. He was there enough during the draft where they didn't pick Shedeur Sanders, so he was there. He was there enough. I will say this though: when you look at that offense, it technically should be focused around the run game and around Jitty, because if you look at the history of Pete Carroll, he is a coach that wants to run the football, a la Marshawn Lynch and what he had, and what he had when he was at USC and at college with the running back, and then of course Reggie Bush, and then of course being in Seattle. And the thing is, Steve and I talked about it yesterday. We kind of joked about it yesterday. It was like it is Pete Carroll who chose Geno, because he coached Geno in Seattle. He chose Geno to come to Las Vegas. And again, when they could have drafted a quarterback for the future, they decided not to and gave Geno a contract extension. So all this is like, talk about a fileable offense. This was all Pete Carroll's decision making. And
I was kind of hard on Geno last episode, but watching this game back, I don't know how much of it I really put on his shoulders either. Yeah. Because when we're talking about an offensive identity, it's like you asking a chef to cook a meal with lackluster ingredients, really. There's only so much you can do. I look at it this way also. You put a top-tier quarterback on that Raiders offense, are they making the playoffs? If you put Mahomes on that offense, are they making the playoffs? Maybe, because he's Mahomes, but I don't know.
Look, I respectfully disagree with that assessment, because, I listen to other shows across the country, especially Cleveland, because of where Shedeur's at, and everybody talks about, like the GM head coach stuff. And I'm a big proponent of what Bill Parcells said back in the day, and I know JC's familiar with, is that if you expect him to, if you're going to be the chef, you need to allow me to go out and pick the ingredients and stuff. And the thing is, with the head coach and the GM, they got to be working hand in hand, because at the end of the day, yes, while the GM signs people players to the roster, you as the coach decide who's going to make that team. So as the coach, you're building that roster right along with the general manager.
In good organizations.
Thank you. There we go.
In theory,
right? Because we've seen here in Kansas City in the past where the GM and the head coach weren't working together, and it was. We look like the Raiders. Yeah. Seriously. So, it just depends on, the organization and how much input they're going to give the coach, and et cetera, et cetera. But no, they don't always work together. And it looks like in this instance that they're not, because the talent, and that's what's so baffling is, these guys have talent because they're NFL players. They have talent. So something is not right in that building, whether it's the scheme, whether it's what they're being asked to do, or
I got to question the talent.
Or they're just not motivated to go out and do it.
But JC, I kind of question the talent, because again, we're talking about the Raiders, and then when we look at the Jets and some of these other teams that are playing bad football, it makes you question, why are some of these players in the NFL when think about it. Justin Fields. We joked about it. Last week he literally couldn't complete a pass, and then yesterday he finally got benched. For the Jets. It took him. It took them a half to finally bench him yesterday, but you didn't want to bench him when you were overseas and you had a chance. So again, the coaching decision and players that you're putting on your team that you somehow think that, I guess, you're smarter than everyone else. Like, okay, well, Pittsburgh couldn't do nothing with Justin Fields, and this other team couldn't. But I can't hear, with the New York Jets, and we see how that's working out.
Let's give some credit to the Chiefs defense before we transition to our next topic. They hold the Raiders to just 3 first downs, 0 for 7 on third down as well.
25 rushing yards.
It just was not. It wasn't a fair fight. It felt like a heavyweight bout versus a featherweight almost.
Man, 30 total
Tyson
plays.
Versus Peter McNeely.
That's like
Mike Tyson versus Peter McNeely.
Yeah, they've gotten more plays in a half than they did in that game. And then, mind you, the starters were out after the third quarter anyway. So, they didn't even get the full 30 plays. So they should be well rested and ready to go Monday night.
A big advantage for Kansas City as they enter a pivotal stretch. We'll keep talking the Raiders game. We'll take some of your questions. I see y'all coming in the chat, and we will continue to talk Chiefs here on the Locked On Chiefs Squad show right after this. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. From footwork to breath work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. With all-wheel drive, standard in every crossover SUV, you can now drive with confidence through almost any season. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, back in on the Chiefs Squad show here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Aaron Ladd here in Toronto for one more day. JC Pearson and Darren Smith breaking down this Kansas City win, their fourth in the last 5 games. It feels bad still dumping on the Raiders, but JC, you mentioned it on the tease in. Just 30 offensive plays, a franchise record low for the Raiders. They're just the second team since 1950 to run 30 or fewer offensive plays in a game. Darren, what were you doing in 1950? You got your yearbook?
I wasn't even around for Back to the Future back then. I don't know if the flux capacitor was around back then. So no, I wasn't doing anything back then.
Yeah, I don't know how much we take from this one. JC we were messaging in the group. He's just like, I don't know if we can really take much from this. I take Rashee Rice. I take the everybody eats, 9 different pass catchers and the dominant defensive performance. But outside of that, I think you turn the page very quickly from this game onto what's next and ahead of them for Kansas City. Just because the Raiders, as you mentioned, it's not just the talent that's currently on the team, but it's just the walls of the whole organization currently. I don't know if you really are measuring up against them. It's not a fair fight.
Yeah, no, this is definitely one that you want to put behind you immediately. Yeah, you went out, you took care of business, did what you were supposed to do, but can't start feeling yourself because you blew the Raiders out. The Raiders, like I said, in my opinion, the worst team in football right now. But what you can take from it is that, yes, the Chiefs went out and did what they were supposed to do offensively, defensively, and special teams. Didn't have any letdowns. Went out and, got themselves in a rhythm, got everybody going. And that's what you take going into the next game. Not so much the fact that, we won, 31-0. The fact is that, hey, we executed offensively, defensively, and special teams. We got to continue to do that on Monday, because obviously the games are going to get much tougher.
JC, I want to ask you something real quick. Were you ever part of a shutout, either side?
I really don't remember in the NFL. They're so rare. Normally you can get a field goal at least, you know what I mean? So I don't remember ever getting shut out or ever shutting anybody out. Now, I know I've been a part of some blowouts on both sides, but never a shutout completely and hold a team to, less than 100 total yards and all. It was just no, not that bad. Trust me.
And Aaron, and to your point, we could not believe that this was the first shutout. Well, since Andy Reid has been here as the Chiefs coach, we thought that there might have been a shutout sometime along the way. We just couldn't figure out when it was. But this was the first shutout in his head coach career here on the winning side, of course. The Chiefs coach, people tend to forget how, the Chiefs were actually shut out at the beginning of the year against Denver. But it was, of course, nobody was playing in that particular game, which was the last game of the season for them. At Denver, where Denver, I think, ended up winning the game, I think 38-0. But again, nobody played in that game, starter-wise, for the Chiefs. So
the shutouts are so rare, especially in the NFL. Like you said, you usually get 3. Usually some garbage time stuff happens, especially now that Vegas is involved. I'll knock on wood there.
Yeah.
Let's give a couple more numbers on the Raiders' futility. It just feels like beating a dead horse, but why not? It was Raiders.
It's the Raiders, man. That's what we do.
In 2 games against the Chiefs and the Chargers this season, the Raiders have been outscored 51-9, and they have now lost 8 straight games inside the AFC West.
Doesn't surprise me.
No,
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, look, it's the Raiders.
51-9, Darren. That's yo.
Hey, look. First of all, everything starts up front. Even though they have Pico as the coach this year, they still do a bad job when it comes to just basic fundamentals of football, which is penalties. Granted, Chiefs had 13 a couple of weeks ago, and we saw how quickly they cleaned that up. The Raiders normally lead the league in penalties, which of course stalls the offense. Geno Smith turning the football over 10 times. Of course, he didn't do it. Shout out to him, he didn't do it yesterday. But they're just not efficient, and they're very careless when it comes to holding on to the football. So, that's kind of things, and they're just not disciplined. And I don't know if that just comes from the culture of being a Raider, but there's just something about them that just it baffles you when you watch them, because you can't believe that this is one of the original organizations in the NFL, and they've won 3 Super Bowl championships in their franchise, but they're still this bad.
Yeah. So, and they've got a nationwide following too. I don't know if it's just the colors or the whatever, but they got a huge following, man. And to be that bad, whether, again, I don't know if it's, the front office or what, but, they are just void of talent. Obviously they're starting over again with Pete. They essentially started over with Aaron Pierce, and he was there for a year and a half, whatever the case may be. But, they've got to find that right guy for them and then get some talent in there and build around it. But, they've had high draft picks for a long time and, haven't been able to get that worked out. So, I don't know.
But Jason, to your point, they've had talent over the years as well. But somehow, some way, they still find a way to get in front of themselves to allow them to have success. I think a couple of years with Derek Carr, they were on the cusp. I know 1 year, I think 2015, he was on the verge of being an MVP candidate type deal when they faltered out, and then I think a few years ago back, when they had the interim coach, they had a chance to go into the playoffs, but they didn't even want to settle for a tie where they could have gotten to the playoffs and ended up losing, I think, to the Chargers in that game. So, they always find a way to snatch success out of their own hands.
And I remember Marty's another favorite saying about them, back when we were, pretty comparable teams and the games were pretty close. He would always say, just hang in there, just keep it close till the fourth quarter, and they'll do something to F it up. And that was, every meeting. That's what he just, hey, if it's not going well, just hang in there. They'll F it up in the end. And 9 times out of 10, they normally do, because they're the Raiders. And that's kind of what we thought about the Raiders.
Oh, they F'd up from the very beginning in this game.
And Aaron, look, yesterday after Rashee Rice was speaking at the podium, I talked briefly to Chief CEO and owner Clark Hunt, and I asked him. I said, obviously, outside the AFC Championship and Super Bowl, I asked him, is this the kind of win that you enjoy most as an owner? Because it is one thing to beat a division rival, but it's another when you're beating the Raiders. And to his credit, he was a little political. I said, this is off the record, I said, but he did tell me that every win in the division is big. However, he did say when you face a team like the Raiders over the number of years, that the two teams have gone at it with each other, it is a little bit more special when you get a chance to beat them, because how much it means he knows how much it means to his father and to the organization as a whole. So again,
let me chime back at that, Darren.
Yeah.
I don't think these teams are really rivals like that anymore.
Well, hold on, but no, that brother, that is a
two bigger rivals inside the AFC than the Raiders. This is not a fair fight. These teams are not evenly yoked. When the Chiefs play the Bills and when the Chiefs play the Bengals, those two teams are the new rivals, in my opinion.
Well, but to be fair, they're rivals because of the quarterbacks. It's not because of the team. It's because of the quarterbacks. Now, Now you can say either the Broncos or the Raiders, or depending on where you fall in that area, could be the Chiefs' biggest rivalries, because I think those go back, because I think they've been in division with each other for decades, versus where the Chargers and but even before the Chargers you had the Seahawks in the AFC West. So I think between the Broncos and the Raiders, you can flip a coin on that. But yeah, I mean, but to your other point, yeah, it's just
I think it's evolved. Time has changed.
Yeah.
JC, what do you think on this? I
Well,
mean, yeah,
that part
historically these teams have been rivals, but the KC is elevated.
Yeah, we used to say that too, because we beat them quite a bit for a number of years, and it wasn't it wasn't even close. And the rivalry was from Marty, obviously, and Al Davis, and those guys hating each other, Marty hating them, and just making sure, regardless of what the records are, where the organizations were, he did not want to lose to the Raiders, and that was the emphasis on Raider Week. But back in the day, it used to be, they used to build it up like the Raiders are so physical, they're dirty, they're going to hit you late, they're going to do this, they would show the fights back in the day and that kind of stuff. But even when we played them, it wasn't like that. I mean, it's not like they were so physical. It's not like they were dirty. It's not like, they weren't those Raiders anymore, but we built them up to be those Raiders, and hate the quote unquote, the Raiders organization, and play that way. But, you got to remember that, some of their guys ended up coming to Kansas City. Some guys from Kansas City ended up going to LA or Oakland, now Las Vegas. And, so it's different in that sense. But yeah, in terms of the rivalry, it's a built up rivalry just because of the hatred that Marty had, really. But, it's nothing like it used to be, where, they were dirty, they were physical, they were going to fight you, hit you late, and that. Not that anymore.
And Aaron, to your point, the biggest thing that keeps us from being an actual rivalry is that these players are too buddy, too friendly. I mean, when you got, we got Max Cross and Patrick Mahomes hugging and kissing after, not literally, but post game and stuff like that.
There was some beef in the quarterback series. I remember them going face to face in the quarterback series.
But it's not, but it's not to the point to where to where you're ready to fight. Post game. I mean, look, perfect example. I mean, people remember the Monday night game between the Chiefs and the Broncos, where Derek Thomas and Neil Smith and all hell broke loose, to where I think they ended up getting suspended, because it was so many flags thrown and fights thrown in that game that it was like, bro, and I think most of it had to do with Shannon Sharpe and his mouth or whatever, quote somebody's phone number out to one of the Chiefs players or whatever on the field. But I mean, you don't have it, and I think a lot of it has to do with money. A lot of it has to do,
there's
with
no stakes involved in these games. To me, when the Raiders beat the Chiefs, it was I don't want to say it's a fluke, but it's a regular season game. It's never a game that is playoff positioning on the line. It's usually a game in the season where
and that's why, to your point, it became Cincinnati, because Cincinnati came in the Arrowhead, beat Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl, and Buffalo would always win the regular season game, but Kansas City, when it mattered most, beat them. But of course, but again, it always came down to the play of the quarterbacks, and of course, you're not going to put Geno Smith and Patrick Mahomes on a billboard like, oh, we got to tune in to watch this matchup, because that's.
But back in the day, it was just they were
it was just Chiefs Raiders back in the day.
Bad Raiders, Howie Long, Lyle Alzado, Tatum, Lester Hayes,
Marcus.
And they did play dirty, and so that's where that started. But over the years, that kind of died out. They weren't as physical as they were back then. They weren't as dirty as they were back then, but they were still making the same, dumb penalties and that kind of stuff. And, just
plus the NFL is not going to let you play like that really anymore either.
Yeah. But I just mean the rivalry back in the day and how it's changed up till now, and you got to win some meaningful games, like you're saying, Aaron, for it to be a rivalry. And when you're getting blown out like this, and it's not the same.
The Raiders might have the number one pick this year. I think they should be the far.
I think it's going to be the Jets, but
they'll mess it up.
I think it'll be the Jets.
Yeah.
They'll win a game they're not supposed to down the stretch.
Yeah. Man.
All right, let's put the Raiders away and let's turn the page to Kansas City's upcoming stretch. The next 4 games, not the next 4 weeks because the bye is in there. We'll preview this pivotal next 4-game stretch for Kansas City. Just on the other side of this break, you're listening to the Chiefs Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. It makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into those stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. All right, final segment here on the Chiefs Squad Show, post-game show on a Monday. We are celebrating a Chiefs win and a marathon finish, and we are looking ahead to an important 4-game stretch for the Kansas City Chiefs. That starts this Monday against the Washington Commanders, who were monitoring the status of Jaden Daniels. Does anybody know the latest on what that's going on with?
Yeah, I heard it was not that serious, and it was going to be, a day-to-day thing. But I would imagine that he will be there on Monday night. Trust me.
So Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are next.
Now, Aaron, you already know everybody gets healthy when it comes to play the Chiefs. Everybody
on Monday night
he gets healing power.
Oh, he gets an extra day. So Jaden Daniels will anticipate. Obviously, we'll do another show before this. We'll do our usual Wednesday midweek show at our normal day, at our normal time, previewing that game. After that, it's a game that we maybe as a potential rivalry, Chiefs versus Bills. Kansas City goes back on the road after the 3-game homestand they had. Then there is the bye week. And then the Chiefs play the Broncos and then the Colts, 2 teams that also figure to be very strongly into the AFC playoff picture. So look, here's what I'll say. Yes, you'd love to go 4-0. I never pencil down 4-0. It's the National Football League, and these teams have decent quarterbacks, if not above average quarterbacks. Take 2-2, 3-1 the rest of the way, and Kansas City figures to be in prime spot for playoff position. Darren, this was your topic. I know you said outside looking in. What do you think about this 4-game pivotal stretch?
Well, it's interesting because I was thinking about, but prior to the season starting, originally Rashee Rice was going to be meeting with the league September 30th, and we thought that, the games he was going to miss was going to be during this meaty stretch with Jacksonville, Detroit, the Raiders, Washington, Buffalo, and Denver, and of course, ended up being the first 6 games versus the middle of the season. So, with him being back again, for me, my opinion only. I see them going 4-0. I mean, I just don't, for me, I probably would have some doubts with Buffalo, but Buffalo last couple of weeks with their losses, they've shown signs and cracks, especially on the defensive side of the ball. When you look at it on offense, you really have Josh Allen and James Cook. And so, but somehow, some way, the Chiefs always have a problem matching up against the Bills, but they've never been at full strength as they are right now. So for me, until I see a team put a defensive plan together where they can stop a healthy Rashee Rice, a healthy Worthy, a healthy Hollywood, a healthy Juju, a healthy Pacheco, a healthy Hunt, a healthy Travis Kelce, a healthy Mahomes, a healthy Noah Gray, it's hard for me to pick anyone else over Kansas City. And look, and I know you talked about perhaps 2-2, 3-1. Right now, as at this moment, Chiefs can't afford any losses. If the playoffs were to start today, they would be out of the playoffs. So technically, Chiefs need to go on a little win streak, and they need to win the games that they're supposed to win. They're 10.5-point favorites against Washington. They need to show why they're favorites, and this is the first time, even going into Buffalo, that the Chiefs are the favorites, because when the season started, Buffalo was the only team that was favored in every game this season. Now the tides are turning where the Chiefs are the favorites going into Buffalo in 2 weeks. So if you're asking me what I'm looking at, they obviously need to win at Denver. They need to win when they host Indianapolis. Perhaps they flex that game to a night game. So right now it's technically a noon game with the Chiefs here. So I'm going 4-0.
Yeah, that's
JC, what do you think, Darren? I got some rebuttals for that, but I'll let you.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good, right?
I rebuttal those rebuttals.
Yeah, I think Denver's going to be a tough game at Denver too. I mean, Denver defensively, we always know that they're got a great defense, got some cover guys, got some guys that can get to the quarterback and give us some problems.
And they're playing up 30 points in the fourth quarter, though. That's what they're not doing.
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen. But, hey, if they can go 4-0, that's great. But, realistically, it's going to be tough, starting with Washington. Coming off the loss to Dallas, Washington is going to come into this game full throttle, too, hopefully, if Jaden Daniels is healthy. But they're going to come in, guns blazing too. And, so you're going to have to take everybody's best shot. But, Denver, Buffalo is going to be Buffalo. I don't care how they played against anybody else. Going to Buffalo, that's probably the biggest rivalry now in the AFC, if you ask me, for the Chiefs, Buffalo. But that's going to be a heck of a game. And then you got Denver, and then you got Indianapolis, who surprisingly – is what 5-1, who got the best
6-1 to the 1 seed in the AFC right now.
Yeah. So it's going to be tough. 4-0 sounds good, but you got to take them one at a time, man. But I think Denver's going to be the toughest out of the group.
The one thing I really like about this, no, Darren, you had it last.
No. I'm just saying, before you go, I'm saying, you asked me what we're going to look like the next 4 games. So even if I said 2-2, you can't say we're going to take one game at a time. When you asked me how I think the next 4 games are going to go. So that's why I'm saying I think they're going to go 4-0.
There you go. Well, now give it back to Aaron. You said your piece.
The one thing that really stands out in this 4-game stretch, and I think that plays to Kansas City's advantage, is the bye week. We know Andy Reid's success coming out of the bye week, whether it be regular season, whether it be playoffs. Andy Reid, with an extra week of preparation and his team's an additional week of rest, do very well. And look at that turn, right? Coming out of Buffalo, no matter how we feel like that game shakes out, we know it's going to be a tough game, 2 of the Titans in the AFC. Then you get your bye week planning in to go against a divisional rival in the Denver Broncos on the road, another tough test against a head coach and a quarterback that we think scheme really well. To get your bye week in the meat of this 4-game stretch where we all agree they're playing some of their best ball as of late, I think that plays into Kansas City's advantage.
Well, always does.
What kind of record you had them going to? Aaron,
I said 2-2-3-1. I said 2-2-3-1. Honestly, if they come out of the stretch 2-2, there's nothing wrong with that.
Hold on. And what we're not going to do an either or. You flip a coin, but you don't go 2-2 or 3-1. I said 4-0. Make a choice and stand on it now. Come on now.
You should not lose to the Commanders. I think that's the win. You should not lose to the Colts at home either. I think that's a win as well. The other 2 games were a toss-up. I don't really know if you can mark down a divisional game against the Broncos on the road or a game at Buffalo as an automatic win when we don't know what's going to happen.
No. But here's the thing. I'm not marking it down as though it's an automatic win. I'm saying if what this Chiefs offense is, as what they've shown us the last 4 weeks is led to believe, I have a hard time seeing another team, especially with the way the defense is playing off of how this offense is going. I have a hard time seeing another, the other team's offense putting as many points up to outscore Kansas City.
JC, what do you think? You split the difference on this.
So you think they're going to win out the rest of the games?
Right? We're talking about these next 4. Hold on. We're talking about these next 4 games.
You don't see another team, stopping them. They're in rhythm, but you got to take into account week in and week out, playing who you're playing, how they're playing, how you're playing at that time. We can't expect this Raider, performance against those 4 teams that we just talked about. So
I'm not worried about
the games are.
I'm not worried about their performance with the Raiders. I am looking at what this offense.
Okay. So basically, what you're saying is they're going to win out, right? That's what you're saying.
30 points is you know what? I'll stand on it. I'll go for it. I'll say,
stand on it. Say it with your chest.
I said,
Say it with your chest.
I
Yeah.
said, look, hold on. First of all, I want to show I'm the only one on this panel that has not taken a paycheck from the Chiefs. So you know,
Wait, what?
so hold on, so you would not have me, or you would not have me being a Chiefs defender because because of what my eyes are seeing and what these players believe. I'm just saying, as well as they are playing. Again, if they come together,
that's all we're saying. Let's stand on it.
Okay, well, I'm standing on it.
There you go. That's it.
For it.
Darren Smith has the Chiefs going 4-0 over their next 4 games. We're going to get to some
winning out the rest of the season.
Yeah, before we get out of here, we appreciate y'all rocking with us here on the Chiefs Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. This has been a popular question. The rookie Omar Norman Lott is lost for the season with an ACL. Darren, you're on the ground there. What's kind of been the reaction to that, and maybe some early contenders to possibly replace him?
Well, they are definitely, not happy about that because of how the injury took place in Sunday's game. So, but there have been reports that Brett Veach is looking on the defensive line market and not a running backs market. So, I'm going to just sit back and wait to see what he if he can make a move. And if there's anyone in particular, I'm not sure. So,
yeah, but if nothing else, that he is going to address it one way or another, and that's something that I give Brett Veach credit for. That whenever there is a need on this team, wherever it is, he will address it. Yeah, how they work their salary cap, I have no idea. More power to them, but whenever there's an issue and there's a need. They are able to go out and get somebody, whether it's for a short term or not, to address that need. What a la DeAndre Hopkins or whoever the case may be. But I guarantee you they will be looking, and if there's somebody that they think can help them, they won't hesitate to pull the trigger.
Yep. And this one speaks to Darren's point. You go 4-0 over the next stretch. This is Cody who chimes in. Could really springboard the team to a dominant position for the playoffs. You beat Indy, who's currently 1 in the AFC. You beat Denver, who's currently 3 in the AFC, and Buffalo, who's currently 5. There's no way Kansas City isn't in prime position for a top spot in the AFC come playoff time.
Look, if this is all serious. If Chiefs fans or even folks in the media like us who think that the Chiefs have a good chance of getting back to Super Bowl with this offense and how they're playing, they have to win the games like this that you were supposed to win because they can't afford these losses because you're looking at head-to-heads type stuff when it comes to season. Again, they've lost way too many games earlier. They lost more games now than they have all last season up until the Super Bowl. And so you're not in a position to lose any more games because the games that you have ahead, Buffalo, Denver, and Indianapolis, these are all teams that are ahead of you in the standings, and you can't afford a head-to-head loss because that could put you lower. That could put you at a wild card setting, or even worse, on the outside looking in. So, yes, I do think that they'll win because they simply have to. They don't have a choice.
Well, you heard it here first. 4-0 over the next 4 games. Don't even watch the games, folks. We got it.
You heard it from me. You didn't hear it from
tune in to the squad show. We'll fill you in.
You heard it from me. You didn't hear it from them. You know what I'm saying? J.C. Pearson, getting a picture from him. You know what I'm saying? He got them going 0-4.
No, what are you talking about, man?
For Darren Smith, J.C. Pearson, I'm Aaron Ladd. We'll catch y'all Wednesday at our normal time for our next edition of the Chiefs Squad Show.